This has Rams fans concerned. The latest on a star DB's injury update, as well as more updates as to how this will affect this game and many more going forward, as well as some key new Rams roster moves that shake up the roster. All that and more in this episode of Rams Digest. And welcome back to another episode of Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Finehirsh. And before we get into today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 5K, 5,000 subscribers, and I believe we can hit that by the end of the year 2025. Josh and I believe that. So make sure to hit that sub button right now, click that notification bell, and click all so you get notified and never miss whenever we post our daily new Rams Digest video content pieces covering all things Rams, so you do not miss a beat this NFL regular season. Leave a like on this video right now. Week 9 getting underway tomorrow night with the Texans and Bills going at it, and we will be back streaming this coming Sunday at around 5:15 Pacific time p.m. for the Rams versus Buccaneers home prime time matchup. Finally, the Rams are in prime time again. I feel like they haven't had nearly enough prime time attention so far this year, but we have a lot to get into. We're going to get into it right now, and we're going to start off with the breaking news on a star defensive back, Quentin Lake, and his injury. And I will be honest that it does not look good right now. And this story is from Rams Wire, which we will be getting into right now. The LA Rams will be without their top defensive back for a while. In Sunday's win over the Seattle Seahawks, Quentin Lake suffered an elbow injury. It was severe enough to require surgery, which he had on Tuesday, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. The procedure was a success, and there's a good chance for Lake to return later this season in the playoffs. Mike Garafolo of NFL Network noted that there is hope he's back before or during the playoffs, so it's possible he could return before the end of the regular season. I do foresee him playing in the playoffs. I don't see Quentin Lake being the type of guy that if he's at least 85 to 90%, he will try to be out there. I do not want him out there if he's not at least 85 to 90% for the playoffs. It's a contract year for him as well, so I know he knows what this does for that potentially, but maybe that means he's easier to bring back for the Rams. I would love to have Quentin Lake back. He's the best defensive back on this team because of all he can do. And it's very unfortunate that this injury requires surgery. Obviously, like and subscribe for Quentin Lake to have a speedy recovery, and comment down below. Obviously some words of encouragement for him right now too. But yeah, definitely not what you want to see. Obviously, Lake having a great season and was making a big impact in that Seattle game before he went out with the elbow injury. It was kind of much like a hushed story because I didn't really notice it. Josh and I both didn't really notice him being out until after the game and after the stream when I was checking about the game, and I noticed Quentin Lake had him play because obviously we knew about Xavier Smith and Higbee, but Quentin Lake not really. And obviously now in my video on Monday where he met with Dr. Neal, one of the top sports elbow surgeons in the game, and unfortunately he needed that surgery. They're still determining, I guess, the severity of how long he needs to be out for, so we'll see. The earliest he can return is the second Seahawks game in mid-December, exactly a week before Christmas, funny enough. So it would be sort of a little holiday/Christmas miracle if he does return. So definitely going to be interesting to see how the Rams replace him. And it's encouraging to hear Lake could return for a playoff run, but his loss will certainly hurt the defense for the next several weeks. He plays every snap on defense when healthy, and as a team captain, he's one of the leaders in the secondary. The Rams used Josh Wallace to replace Lake after he went down on Sunday, while also giving Cam Kitchens more snaps in his absence. And McCreary is another option to play the slot like Lake does, as can Kobe Durant. Yeah, Cam Kitchens was awesome. I think Cam Kitchens is going to be a guy that you see playing a lot more safety snaps. Because we know Quentin Lake is primarily a safety, even though we know he can do pretty much everything in the defensive backfield there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more of Cam Kitchens because of his knack for the ball and him making big plays. Josh Wallace looked pretty good in that Seattle game. Or we'll see if that translates throughout the entire season. But I wouldn't be surprised if we finally get to see Roger McCreary play more. I say finally because you did trade for him, but yet you're not really playing him because he's clearly good enough to play. So this injury will open up McCreary some playing time, and he should know the defense by now. It's been almost a month since he's been here, so he should know that defense. And I do trust these guys. They won't do what Quentin Lake can do, but they can maybe replace it as a whole. It's going to be tough, but I do believe that they can. And we do have some words from Sean McVay about how they plan to replace Quentin Lake for these next several weeks, which we will be getting into right now. Sean McVay said earlier this week that you don't replace a Quentin Lake, noting how valuable he is as a playmaker and as a leader on defense. He's so valuable for so many reasons, with what he can do, with who he is as a human, with the way that he elevates and leads, McVay said. He's a glue guy for us. If he is out, that's obviously a big loss and we love him, but we'll have to figure out what is the next best thing for us to be able to do, Sean McVay. And yeah, and Sean's right here. He is such a big part of this defense, of this defense. He's a guy who does everything out there on that field, and he reads signals so well, reads routes well, gets a lot of PBUs, not necessarily a lot of interceptions, but he makes big tackles. He's a sure tackler. Obviously, also Emmanuel Forbes has had a really solid last few weeks, so I expect him to keep building on that. And Akhello Witherspoon is going to be back at some point within this next month here, most likely, which will be good, which will be able to help. He doesn't really play the similar position as Lake, but just have another able body out there will be big for this Rams team. But until then, they do need to figure out the best way to replace him going up against, even though the Bucs have some injuries, which we're going to talk about, that you're still going up against Baker, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and you just never know with him. He's going to be motivated as always, so it's still going to be a tough matchup on Sunday, despite both teams are going to be missing some key players. And Lake has played all 10 games this season and has recorded 61 tackles, 2 of which went for a loss. He also picked off the first pass of his career against the Ravens in Week 6 and finished with 11 tackles in 2 separate games this year. Yeah, Quentin Lake is a do-it-all type of player. Again, he's a guy who reads the defense really well. He's really respected in the locker room. He is a leader. Now, I don't foresee him missing a lot of games in terms of him not being around. Maybe he's not going to travel to Carolina, which would make sense with the surgery being so recent. But after that, he probably will be able to travel. I'm sure he's going to be in SoFi on Sunday in some capacity, probably sitting up in a box somewhere. But I'm sure he's going to be with the team. He's going to be at practices. Probably, obviously not, the next couple days because you got to recover from, being under anesthesia and all that. But after that, he's definitely going to be at practice. I'm sure he's going to be coaching people up. He's going to be helping out Chris Shula, Aubrey Pleasant, and the other defensive backs coaches. So I won't be surprised if his hand is still all over the game plan, that he's still going to be very, very involved. Because he's going to want to get back as quick as possible, as he should. But don't rush it, though. You don't want to get yourself worse or re-injure yourself. But maybe, for the playoffs, I do expect him out there in some capacity. This is going to be tough, but I do think Cam Kitchens, Witherspoon, and McCreary are going to be the main guys. I don't foresee Kobe Durant and Emmanuel Forbes. More so, Kobe Durant's going to have to change. I don't think they're going to change the way that they use Emmanuel Forbes at all because it's been working so well that they really shouldn't change it. But comment down below right now, what are your thoughts on this and how they can replace him? I am concerned as a Rams fan because you got a game against the Lions coming up. We're going to go home to play the Panthers. The Panthers have been one of the better home teams in the league, and they're not going to be a cakewalk as people thought they would be. Even the Cardinals are a divisional game, so you never know. But you got some tough games coming up on the pipeline. So comment down below what you think about this. Witherspoon, again, will be back at some point, probably towards the end of these next 4 games, so he's definitely going to help. But again, comment down below what you think right now. What's your concern level? Out of 10, I would say right now, I'm about a 6. That it's definitely going to be a big loss, but I do think Chris Shula and the Rams have the talent to at least overcome it to a point where they won't lose 4 in a row. Now, they may lose a game because Quentin Lake's not out there, but I don't see them being like, oh, Quentin Lake's out. Oh, here's a 4-game losing streak. I don't foresee that happening. But comment down below right now what you think, because the Rams are also in a fight for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, not just the NFC West. So make sure to comment down below what you think right now. And playing off of this, we also have an update on a cornerback, Akhello Witherspoon, who's been out since week 2 with that collarbone injury. This is from Turf Show Times, which we will be getting into right now. And Witherspoon is on injured reserve, and he hasn't played since the team's... wrong graphic there. Apologies. Sean McVay says the Los Angeles Rams have set a December timeline for veteran cornerback Akhello Witherspoon to return, per the Coach McVay show on the team's website, and we're going to hear what Coach McVay said right now. He's doing good. He's making progress. Reggie Scott, the Rams' head of strength and conditioning coach, is holding him back. December is kind of what we've targeted, but we'll see when we are able to start his clock, 21-day practice window to activate from injured reserve. I would sense this would happen probably after this week, because he has 21 days. You can ramp him up. I'd love him back for the Lions game. I think he needs to be back for that Lions game, preferably the Cardinals game, even on a limited snap count, just so he can be out there a little bit, and then he can kind of let him loose again for the Lions game, which is when they said he'd be back anyway. So you're not making him rush back in. It already seems like head strength and conditioning coach is kind of holding him back a bit, which I understand. But at this point, if he's able to at least be out there somewhat in practice, you should be, because the only way you're going to get better and healthier is to be out there at a certain point, especially when it's been more than 2 months. It's not like you're rushing him back. So I do foresee him going back to practices quite soon. Witherspoon is on injured reserve, and as I said, he hasn't played since the team's Week 2 contest against the Titans, where he suffered a clavicle injury. The Rams can designate him to return from IR to open up the 21-day ramp-up window. This does not necessarily mean that Witherspoon must practice for 21 calendar days before he can return to the active roster and/or performance, as teams can activate the player at any point during the window. LA would first need to make room for Witherspoon on the active 53-man roster. Yeah, they'll kind of cross that bridge when they get there, but I do see it happening sooner rather than later. And where will Witherspoon fit upon his return? In light of Quentin Lake's injury, of which the extent of his absence is currently unknown, the Rams do have a hole in the secondary. However, it's not one that Witherspoon can help fill. Lake is the team's primary star and/or slot corner. Witherspoon plays primarily inside. One option is to instead deploy Kobe Durant in the slot, opening a spot for Witherspoon on the outside. Emmanuel Forbes has played well lately, and in theory, this would allow the Rams to put their best three corners on the field at the same time. I do agree with this. I think this is what would happen, because you'd have Kitchens being the main starting safety, which I think he kind of should be. At this point, again, Cam Curl's been better this year, but still not great. I think Kitchens is the better option, but doing this, it does allow you, as I said, to put your three best pure corners, because again, Quentin Lake is not a pure corner, but I would say he's a better overall DB than everyone here. But you have your best three corners out there on the field. You can have Darius Williams and McCreary being your 4 and 5. That's a pretty deep cornerback room, and Darius Williams playing a lot better as the year's gone on as well, and getting Roger McCreary out there a little bit too. I do foresee this being the move. Like, Kobe Durant is good enough to play in the slot, especially because of his body frame too. Emmanuel Forbes has been pretty good on the outside, and Witherspoon can do the same thing playing inside, which it makes a lot of sense for Krishula and the Rams to do this. I do agree with this move. But if Josh Wallace or Roger McCreary are the next man up and inside corner, the Rams will be left with a tough choice on the outside. Do you move players who are currently playing well, Durant and Forbes, to the bench to make room for Witherspoon? Or is it wiser to keep the hot hand and safer options for a rainy day? I think Witherspoon is just so good and talented that you kind of have to get him out there sooner rather than later. I think it does make a lot of sense to get him out there. Again, Roger McCreary is an unknown. The Rams haven't been playing him. I don't know why. And Josh Wallace, he's kind of been an up and down practice squad roster guy. He was good against Seattle, but we don't know how long that's going to last, if he's still going to be good. I think this Bucs game is going to be the tell-all how these two guys play. If these two guys are good, then I think you can maybe have Forbes take his time. Not Forbes, Witherspoon take his time. But again, you want Witherspoon and Lake out there when the playoffs come around to give you your best chance to win the Super Bowl. And why did the Rams trade for McCreary? LA acquired McCreary from the Titans 3 weeks ago. The former second-round pick is yet to take a defensive snap for the Rams. It was telling that Wallace primarily filled in for Lake last week against the Seahawks. It also begs the question, what is the plan for McCreary, who has experience playing both inside and on the perimeter? If Wallace is truly ahead of McCreary on the depth chart, why did LA feel compelled to make this move? Is there room for McCreary on the roster once Witherspoon returns? That's my question too. I actually really liked the trade when we made it. I was like, okay, yeah, Roger McCreary's good. He's a guy that helps the cornerback room. He's NFL ready, can put him in. Doesn't seem like it. I get him not playing the first week because he's learning the defense. But after that, at least you can't even give him 5, 10, 15 defensive snaps. I've seen him only play a couple special teams reps. I haven't read anything that he's been injured or he was injured when we got him, so I don't really understand this. If Josh Wallace is ahead of him, fair play to Josh Wallace. I mean, again, I know I said it a couple times already, but he looked good in the Seattle game, but we have to see it to believe it. I do think this is the game where McCreary is going to get to play, because the Bucs do have some injuries that we are going to get into pretty shortly here, but it does beg an important question for the Rams. Why did they trade for McCreary? And this is kind of the depth chart that Turf Show Times did kind of make as an estimate. We have Durant and Forbes, your 1A, 1B. Then Witherspoon and Darius Williams, Wallace and McCreary. Putting McCreary all the way at the bottom, this is when everyone on the DB room for the cornerback side of things is healthy. And keep in mind, Quentin Lake's going to be rotating between safety and corner. Yeah, I mean, do they have to cut McCreary? Because that's an option. Or you leave him off the playoff roster, potentially, too. Because he's 5, plus Lake is good enough that you're definitely at a crossroads when Witherspoon returns, because he's too good to not play. He was so good the first 2 games of the year. He had a good 2024 as well, and I'm sure the Rams want to bring him back yet again. So McCreary is on thin ice, and I do think this game is going to be key for him, for the Rams, if they bring him back, and his career too, because he's not really playing at all as a Ram, and on the Titans he was a starter. So this just goes to show that maybe he's not a good fit for the system, that they regret the trade, that we do have to wait and see, because once Forbes and Lake are back, he's not going to be playing really at all whatsoever. And can the Rams afford to keep 6 corners on the roster once Witherspoon is back in the fold? They kept 5 out of training camp to start the regular season, so it wouldn't be overly surprising. It is important to keep in mind that Lake is position flexible and could reasonably account for multiple roster spots in theory. The Rams also missed a recent rash of injuries that could force difficult decisions, including Tyler Higbee and Xavier Smith, who are also banged up in last week's game versus Seattle. Yeah, I totally agree with this. The Rams would have to make some decisions once Witherspoon is back, as it will happen before Quentin Lake, certainly. So we are going to have to wait and see on that. And comment down below your thoughts on this, because it's a really interesting idea as the Rams kind of go into the playoffs. After this game, again, I do think McCreary is going to get a shot to play this game and see how he is. But if he's not good, then I don't know if he's going to play another snap if everyone's fully healthy in the playoffs. And even just going forward, because you got Kitchens, Jalen McCullough's a good option too. He's a versatile guy who I'm sure is going to see the field a bit more too. So McCreary definitely lost in the fold with Witherspoon making his way back quite soon. And this one Bucs game. This is the game where I'm kind of least concerned about all these injuries, because Chris Godwin's questionable with a fibula injury. Bucky Irving questionable with a foot. Tristan Wirfs questionable with a shoulder injury. Egbuka was a little sick today, but I do think he'll play. Sterling Shepard's questionable with a shoulder injury. Obviously, Mike Evans is still out a few more games with his collarbone injury. And Jalen McMillan is out with a neck injury. Yeah. Basically, outside of Egbuka, you're relying on, Tez Johnson's decent, but outside of that, Cade Otton's fine. I'm not a Rachaad White guy. I've never been. Sean Tucker looked awesome last week. He looks like a guy that we're going to have to stop. But besides that, the defense shouldn't... Again, it's Baker Mayfield, so I'm never counting Baker out of any game. But this is the one game where I'm not as concerned. But after this game, I am definitely a little bit concerned for the Rams defense, just with all the Bucs injuries. But the Rams did make some roster moves today that we have to get into real quick before we wrap up, that we're going to get into right now. And they put on injured reserve Rob Havenstein and Tyler Higbee as well. Higbee dealing with an ankle injury, not a knee injury, so he won't be eligible to return until the Seattle game on the 18th. Same thing with Rob Havenstein. He's had knee and ankle issues as well. He will also look to return by that Seahawks game. And look for Warren McClendon to play more in place of Rob Havenstein. McClendon was good earlier on in this year when Havenstein missed time. And look for Davis Allen and Terrence Ferguson to get back into the game plan with Tyler Higbee out, which could potentially help the Rams as a whole. They signed Harrison Mevis from the practice squad to the active roster for the rest of the season. He's 9 for 9 on extra points, 0 for 0 on field goals. And they also claimed Chris Smith II on waivers. He's a safety, played for the Raiders for 2 years, 5th round pick, All-American in Georgia, 5'10", 197. Definitely an interesting little player. We'll see if he plays, probably just a practice squad guy. And they also signed defensive back Alex Jones to the practice squad. Alex Johnson, I should say. LA guy, he went to UCLA from Carson. He's undrafted in 2024, 6 foot, 185 pounds, decent size as well. He was on the Titans training camp roster this year, and he was on the Giants and Colts offseason and practice squads last year. So not really big moves there besides the guys on injured reserve. And Nate Landman and Xavier Smith are both questionable. Smith in concussion protocol and Nate Landman with a back injury. So we'll see if they play. I would assume Landman would as of now. Xavier Smith, I definitely do think might miss this game. But comment down below what you think of all these injuries for both teams. It's going to be a short-handed game for everyone involved here, it looks like, on Sunday night, but still should be a good one nonetheless. Bucs fighting to keep the lead in their division, and the Rams fighting to as well keep their lead and potentially overtake the Eagles for the 1 seed, depending on how this week goes. And that is all for this episode of Rams Digest. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 5K, 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. If you want to be a part of that journey, hit that sub button, click the notification bell, click all so you get notified and never miss whenever we post our daily new Rams Digest video content pieces covering all things Rams. Make sure to leave a like on this video right now for Week 9 getting underway. Tomorrow night, Josh and I are going to be back on stream this Sunday, 5:15 p.m. around there Pacific time for the Sunday Night Football matchup between the first place Rams and the first place Buccaneers in SoFi. Comment down below right now your thoughts on the Quentin Lake injury, how the Rams can replace him, your thoughts on Witherspoon's injury, and what it does for Roger McCreary going forward, and what you think McCreary will do in this game. Quite interesting. Comment down below as well your thoughts on the Rams' roster moves as a whole. I've been your host, Josh at Finehirsh, as always. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Rams Digest. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon for another one, and have a great rest of your day.